Hello. So today we are going to talk about price subsidy in a competitive market. So here I have in black my demand, and here also in black my supply. We find the equilibrium point here where demand intercepts the supply. My equilibrium has quantity Q star and price P star. Okay? Now, what is the consumer surplus? The consumer surplus is what is below the demand and above the price. So it's this area B and this area C here, the area of this triangle here. Okay, the whole area of this triangle is the consumer surplus, B plus C, consumers. And the producer surplus is what's below the price and above the supply. So it's this area of this triangle here. Okay, so it's F plus I. F plus I. Together, the welfare is the consumer surplus plus the producer surplus. So I have this equation. Welfare at time 0 is this. This time 0 means before the government intervenes in the market, okay? In the free market, that's the surplus, the welfare, I say, okay? Consumer surplus, producer surplus, that's it. That's the end of the story. Now, the government steps in and tries to help the economy by offering some money, some cash for each purchase. The government, instead of taxing, it subsidizes. So think about the subsidy as a negative taxation, if you like. It's fine. And this much is how much the government subsidizes. So the demand shifts up by this amount here. So in green here, the demand after the subsidy, the supply stays the same. So here they intercept the new demand, they shift up the demand with the supply. So this is the price from the viewpoint of producers. That's how much money each producer will receive now. The consumers will pay less because remember, the government is paying part of the price. So this difference here, from here to here, is this size here. Okay? So this is the price for consumers. PC here is the price that consumers pay. Okay? And this gap here is covered by the government. And this point now has this quantity, so the quantity increases. We have more quantity because the government is trying to help the economy, giving some money, so it's natural to have more quantity. Now, what is the new consumer surplus now? So forget about this line now. Let's think. We know what actually are the prices from the viewpoint of consumers. The price for consumers is this. And this is line here reflects the tastes of consumers. So the consumer surplus now is this. Okay? Everything above the price that consumers is paying and below the demand curve, the original demand curve. So it is B plus C plus F plus G plus H. B plus C plus F plus G plus H. The new consumer surplus. Okay? From the producer's viewpoint, however, the price is this. It's a higher price. The government puts in this bit more, and the price for that producers will receive is this high. So what's the producer surplus? Everything that is below this line here and above the supply. So it's C, D, F, and I. C, D, F, and I. Okay, so I put here in purple the extra surplus of the consumers, the change in consumer surplus from the initial situation to the final situation where you have subsidy, right? So what changes from the consumers? The consumer surplus used to be B plus C, now it's B plus C plus F, G, H. So this FGH is an increment. This area here, FGH, is how much extra consumer surplus the consumers will have now after the introduction of the price subsidy. Okay? And this change in surplus, it's positive. The consumers are happy as a group after the introduction of the consumer surplus. For the producers, the producer surplus used to be F plus I, now it's F plus I plus C and D. So you have this extra C and D here. So this area here is the change in producer surplus. There's more producer surplus after the introduction of the price subsidy. So the producers will be happier. Okay? So this W1 is the welfare after the introduction of the after the introduction of the subsidy. Now, the tricky part is money doesn't fall from the sky. Things someone's paying for that. So yes, you have to add the consumer surplus, the new consumer surplus, with the new producer surplus. But where's all this money coming from? It's from the taxpayer, right? So how much money is the government spending to pay the subsidy? Well, this difference is this much. This height here is how much is the subsidy per unit, and you're selling Q double star units. So the area of this rectangle here is how much money the government is spending to finance the subsidy. Okay, and this is area here of this rectangle is C, D, E, F, G, H. C, D, E, F, G, H. Subsidy expenditure. Okay? So the new welfare is the new consumer surplus plus the new producer surplus minus the expenditure of the government, because the government now has to spend money. So let's then do the maths. I have a C here, which I cancel with a C here. I have a D here, which I cancel with a D here. I have a H here, which I cancel with a H here. I have the G here, I cancel with the G. And I go my F with my F. Okay, so what's left for me? I have the B. I have nothing more here. I have a C. I have F. And I have I. And for here I cancel everything except I have a negative E. Minus E. Okay? And notice that this term here is exactly the W0. This is exactly what the welfare used to be before the intervention. So it's W0 minus E. W0 minus E. So overall, the price subsidy helped consumers and producers, but in terms of total welfare, it introduced an inefficiency. Okay? We have this deadweight loss E. This area here is lost. What's the intuition? Well, this area here, if you have a consumer and producer, say someone standing right here, this guy here, I have a consumer willing to pay this much and a producer willing to sell the good if someone were to pay this much. So in the absence of government intervention, they would not trade, because the producer would say minimum of this and the consumer would say maximum of that. So they would not be able to trade. But now there is space, because the difference is smaller than the subsidy. So if someone is putting money to make their transaction, this pair, consumer producer, will trade, and that's inefficient, right? There will be too much trade, because actually the value for the producer is higher than the value for the consumer. So they should not be trading, but they will, because there is a subsidy, this artificial subsidy. And that's the source of the deadweight loss. So if you add up all these negatives over all this part, you have this area here, which is the deadweight loss. Okay? So this area E is the deadweight loss, is what we lose because of the introduction of the price subsidy in terms of total, in terms of welfare. Okay? Here the same graph, again, but I'm just making the demand more elastic. So you can visually see that this gain here for the consumers, if their demand is very elastic, it's very small compared to the gain for the producer surplus. Okay? So depending on the elasticity, one side of the market can gain more than the other. But in all cases, there will be deadweight loss. Okay? To introduce, to have a price subsidy, it's inefficient economic policy overall. You can do it if you want to really help one side of the market, but even in this case you have to be careful with the elasticities, because if the elasticities are not the way you think you are, you might be helping the other side of the market, not the one you actually intended to help. Okay? Of course, this is a static consideration. In the real world, there are dynamic considerations, match formation and other job search costs and other frictions. But for the static world, that's the scenario. That's what happens. Okay? Hope you enjoy. See you next time. Bye-bye.